I don't have a purpose because I feel like I'm just a rat in the race, right? The building your own company and finding your own purpose of what that looks like and how you can solve things. I'm driven to solve and serve. That's pretty much I think my sole purpose in life. I'm going to solve problems and I'm going to serve.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Camden and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And dadgummit Bob King, our previous guest, I almost read the notes that I typed on there. I was about, nope, don't read that. Do not read this part, Otis. And then I would probably say, do not read this part, Otis. You know, that's the great thing about our show is like, yeah, that's okay.
Yep.
Right? It's about having some fun and just hanging out and talking and not sweating it. You know, just completely different, but same subject I'll throw at you. Playing golf on Sunday, because I'm not a golfer. Y'all all know that. Gave it up for hunting and fishing about 40 years ago.
A little bit more fun.
Yeah, it is. But there are a couple of guys that were in our golf tournament that were pretty intense and not happy with their play. And I'm just back there like whacking the ball and going, okay, who's got more? Because that one ain't coming back. You know, and those fundraising activities that you do for Engage, you got some intense people that are wanting to win.
I actually do have a great story, and I'm glad you asked that because I was going to go somewhere completely different with that. Our big fundraiser we would have done in 2019 at the Boxyard here, great place in Tucson. Go visit it if you come. Awesome, like outdoor bar area. You've been there a couple times, I think that. But so we're hosting and we do the poker tournament and all this, and we do unlimited rebuys because, and not a big poker guy, you know, not a big golf guy, but I know enough that it's like you do that at fundraisers like this where it's like the winnings don't matter too much. It's all about just the kids and that kind of thing, right? A very small, you know, fundraise, like 100 people, something like that. Well, this guy, I guess, didn't read the rules and was very upset that we were allowing rebuys because he was trying to win the tournament. And he asked for refunds on his ticket and all this because there were other people that were doing rebuys. We had people come to us asking for refunds on dollar beer tickets because the dollar beer kegs ran out. And so there were no more dollar beers. So yeah, you talk about weird, intense things and it's like raising money for folks. That was a weird one.
That is
Man. Yeah. And our guest, Robin, I was going to say something snide about the weirdness, but nice.
Be right on the spot
I
there.
mean, I know Robin well enough to where I could do that, but I decided not to because I also don't want to get in trouble later on. But Robin, it is great to have you, Dr. Robin. I always like saying that because Dad is a doctor also, and I always remember my uncle, Dad's brother-in-law, would always make sure that it was addressed. Anything he'd mail, Christmas cards, just letters, whatever, was always addressed to Dr. and Mrs. O.W. McGregor. So it's well earned. So glad to see you, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And absolutely love all conversation of all topics because it is, it's funny is the fact that people think that it's pretentious. Some people do. I shouldn't even say that. I only use it professionally. Outside of the world, I'm just Robin. You know, and some people are, should I call you doctor? So you can call me Dr. Robin. My students used to say Dr. Robin all the time. So I got so used to it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of an endearing way of saying, you know, without being, from my standpoint, pretentious about the whole concept of it. It still feels weird. I'm going to tell you after all these years, still feels weird.
Well, it was a lot of writing to get to have two letters in front of your name, ain't it?
A lot of reading. I think there's more reading than there is writing in many cases. I mean, there was a lot of writing, but I'd rather write than having to do all that reading to get all that writing to get all of that, you know, down there. But I'm a big reader.
All right, we got
my bookshelves. I mean, mine are bigger than yours are at this point. But you can't see them right now.
We've got a math problem that somebody's going to have to solve for us. Is how many books or pages read is each letter worth? That DR. It's probably a couple
No.
of thousand each, right?
Oh my gosh.
At least a couple thousand. I mean, the articles alone. I used to have at my old office the stacks of articles because I used to print everything. I'm an old school, had to read it, highlight it, and pick out the things that were really most important to me in my research and highlighted it. So I had stacks and stacks of stuff, and they were like, "What is that?" Like, that's all I've read. Do you want to read it? Because it's interesting and not interesting at exactly the same time. So I kept it around because it helped me feel good about how I got there, right? Because learning, I'm a life learner. Regardless, I have a PhD. I really don't want to go to school anymore. I would be very honest, but I want to keep reading and keep learning. And so I buy about 5 to 10 books a month and go through them to keep learning on that aspect of it. Because after learning and having to do it so much, it becomes really just this whole part of everything I do. I have articles and it is overwhelming electronically. I have to be very honest because after a while you're like, I go around rabbit holes of like, oh, that's interesting. Let me go here. And then you go here instead of just staying in a book going, that is really interesting. Oh, they have a new chapter. I'll go to that, instead. But yeah, I think that's why I went there, not knowing how much I would get out of it, like for the rest of my life. Like literally, it's going to be a reader and a learner and a researcher in all capacities. So.
Well, you brought up something or made me think of something that I find interesting in that fact that you spend all this time, to get your PhD. You do all this reading and research, but yet they call it a terminal degree. I
Yeah.
think, somebody ought to change that. It ought to be. I think you're right. It becomes part of you, right? Because you've been doing it, for a number of years. That was like your primary focus was doing all that heavy lifting of reading and research, and then you get the piece of paper, walk across the stage, get your 3 stripes and all that sort of stuff, and they say that's a terminal degree. That doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean,
It's a funny use of words.
It is a interesting term of your words. I look at it like it's a terminal one, meaning you can go no higher, right? There is nothing above it. So terminal being you've hit your platform. Like,
You learned it all.
Yeah, you can't get any more degrees above mine, but you can get other degrees. I guess that's the way I look at it. But yeah, it is kind of funny how they use that.
I think there's an interesting piece I kind of want to get into, and it's interesting we kind of stumbled into this. But Dad, you and I were talking about this the other day of people, addressing you a certain way. Like I get asked that sometimes of Coach Camden, Coach McGregor, like out with different rugby teams and stuff like that. I used to joke to little kids, it's Coach Cam, high school, it's Coach Camden, college kids, it's Coach McGregor. But Dad, you and I were talking about it. It's really just like a respect thing. You said it was the same thing in the military, and I think there's this interesting thing where because Robin, you were talking about it. And Dad, you joked. It's like we have fun calling you doctor because you don't put that on us. If you were walking around like I'm doctor, we would call you Robin because it was funnier that way. Like it's kind of that little thing there. But because people who don't want the title, I think, are more comfortable in that kind of a way. But I want to throw that back to you, Robin. What do you think of that as far as how it extends into leadership titles? Because I think there's that same kind of thing at play there where some people get the title and it's like they just want to wear it, tattoo it on their forehead. And the other people, it's like they don't really want it. And those are the people we gravitate towards more, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think and it's one of the most important topics that I find even through all my learning is authentic, being authentic, right? So when you're authentic and you're humbly authentic, you understand that your title could be whatever. It could be whatever you want it to be. But I look at it, I professionally do go by Dr. Robin Desmore. So there are times when I just say, oh, this is Robin. I'm like, this is Dr. Robin Desmore. Hi, how are you? And go from that particular standpoint. But it's not meant to be anything other than the fact that it's my persona there. Titling, I've never been a big deal about the titling ever in my entire life. And even now, I'm a CEO. I barely ever use it unless it's somebody comes up and they're like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a CEO. Yeah, I forgot I am. I'm that CEO because I'm a worker. I'm a server. Those are the things that I take with it. So over the years, I have been at many companies, many of the GovCon industry things, and we have a former general anywhere in the lineage of leadership, and they still expect that general, whatever. I'm not even going to mention names because I almost did, but
Not all of them, I will say. Some of my favorite ones do. They're like,
don't
just call me.
Well, and I think that's the other interesting layer. And you get this somewhat in business, but it's not as, direct. I think the military is the most direct's not the right word, but, direct correlation of this, which is your work actually kind of correlates to that title. So you busted your ass to become a lieutenant colonel, Dad. So it's like there's a little bit of this, no, call me colonel, and those kind of things I would expect. Whereas I think in business that feels a little bit, I don't know, that feels a little bit more out of place because it's not necessarily this climbing the staircase type thing. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think that depending on what industry you're in, I think it all depends on where and who. And do you think Elon Musk asked to be called something very specific, Mr. Musk? I don't think so. I think he really is just one of those.
As weird as he is, probably.
Listen, have you seen his children's names? Yes, yeah, there's a whole level of quirkiness there. However, I think that, like you said originally, Cam, it was like gravitating towards certain people who don't expect something. I think that takes us out of a comfortable zone as well, right? Because when people we're all the same. Literally, everybody does exactly the same thing. I have friends that are rock stars, and they just want to be Bob. They just want to be that person. They don't want to be this. Not that they don't like it. I think it's more of like, I just want to have this me. I just want to be me at any given time. And to me, that goes back to the authentic piece of it. When you're more authentic, more in touch with who you are and what you are and about yourself, you become like Otis. You become Otis. And I have to say, being in the community with Otis, with a lot of people that and that we know, I find myself gravitating to just say, hey, Otis, hey, how's this? Because that's all I want from you too, right? I don't want anything other than that, because that makes we're on the same level, and we're having that really just getting to know who we are and talking about who we are, and that I love. That's to me, the most important pieces. So when you meet people in industry that I have met over the last 30 some odd years in, the GovCon industry, there are people who truly expect certain aspects of it, and they really are former leaders. And I'm former Army, so I can make this night of, I understand the respect. I want to give respect. Absolutely. But to give it, you get it too, right? In that particular aspect, everybody earns it. But if you don't come with it, how do you say that you earned it? So,
yeah, and that is so true. And I just think back to, former bosses and things like that. The ones that I'm still in touch with, and the only reason I'm still in touch with them because I respect them. The ones I didn't respect, I don't know where the hell they are. I can give a shit. But because I respect them, I still call them sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. There's a couple that I speak to regularly that are, 2 and 3 and 4 star, retired generals that are, I still, sir, when I write them an email, sir or general or admiral. And it's because of the respect I have for them as a human being and as a former boss and the thing, and even now what they're doing now and the things they're doing. So that's
a great leadership trait, Otis.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys are big on that particular piece of it. To me, I think that shows a great leadership quality, because you're willing to, regardless of what your position is, still willing to offer that as a, absolute high authority of sir. Hey, sir. I mean, it's great seeing you. Thank you. Regardless of your setting, right? You're in being very genuine, but it's a good leader. To me, it's a really great leadership way of teaching everybody around you how to act, but also how to lead.
Yeah. Well, you could even go into the, when you talk about sir and ma'am, I always laugh at this, and, growing up in the way I did, that was, everybody was sir and ma'am. And how many times I'd have people, don't come in. I mean, like, why not? I think there's an interesting thing to explore in that, the folks that are uncomfortable, somebody saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes or no, sir. What's going on there, Robin? What do you think?
I don't like being called ma'am because it makes me feel old. And I'm not old. I want to be as young as possible. So I like being
Hey,
called.
well, time out. You said 30 years, and I can do the math. You can't
Don't do that, Dad.
You can't go in the
No, I'm
army
stopping
before
you.
you're 18. All right. I'm just saying you can't go in the army before you're 18, and you said 30 years. I didn't say that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's probably
Math problems.
numbers in between there. Yeah, math problems. Don't ask them to me because I'll be very honest. It's okay. I'm okay with what age I'm at. It's just a number. Mentally, I'm still, back in the army somewhere, like with a lot of people that I've met, a lot of Rangers. So specifically, but that's good. That's how you keep staying vibrant in life. And that's, to me, is also part of your learning, right? When you keep your mind young and active, that's your growth. Those are absolutely necessary for every aspect of it. So I'm okay with being still young.
Yeah, I think it reminds me. I'll make the joke because my wife makes this all the time, Dad. The Jessica will say, it's like, I'm just this 30-year-old teenage mother out here, and it's like this weird feeling of like you still feel like you're this, like, oh my god, I'm pregnant, this crazy thing. It's like, no, you're 30, you own a house, like it's like things are okay. Like but for whatever reason we lock onto those things. I think the sir and ma'am is another one like that. It's like, whoa, no, I'm not in charge here. Come on, and it's like, what? No, you are literally the CEO of the company. It's like, all right, yeah, I've been in this for 30 years, but it's like, come on, ma'am, like that's crazy. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. It and I've always been that way, even when I was much younger. It's just I understand the respect and formality of it. It's just, sir sounds so much better than ma'am. You're like, what? Oh, God, ma'am.
I think there's something to that. And actually, there's something else I wanted to kind of touch on in the titles and Dad, so all three of us, kind of talking, me more coaching, we touched like the more military, the more business. We touched all those areas. The kind of consistent thread there was that the people who don't like the title as much and kind of shirk the title a little bit, like they like the responsibility, they love their job, but they don't really love the title, that those are the people we gravitate more than that kind of stuff. Yep. There's this interesting thing also, though, when it comes to the respect of that, which is, what about the person, and the military might be a tough example for this, Dad, but the idea of like a person who doesn't necessarily give you that respect, because you can't really command it in a lot of those settings. Dad, you're going to know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to call him out because it's a little sad of a story, but like a certain rugby coach who may be out there going, no, I'm the coach, guy. And, I kind of like it's like, no, you're yelling at a bunch of high school kids being like, I'm the coach. That's weird. Like that feels weirder to try to demand that respect than it is to actually just create that. So I guess what I'm trying to build towards is, what do y'all think? And Robin, you can go first. What do you think is the process to getting to that respect? And, speaking to those people, maybe when you can't just straight up demand that respect, because, it, like I said, it looks kind of goofy, doesn't it?
Well, I think anybody who's trying to demand the respect is trying to prove something to everybody around them, not necessarily to themselves. I think the people who aren't demanding it and that are being it don't look for it. It isn't required to validate who they are and what they are and how they do anything. And I'll take that. That is mine all day long. At no point in time in my life, and I don't know where, I think the Army gave this to me. I have to be very honest. It is something I think that I have built and built and built over the years, because I don't care. I mean, I do care. I care deeply. But when it comes to that particular stuff, I'm like going, I have made this path. This life is mine, and the decisions I make are all mine. I can't blame them on anybody, even though people like to. They're mine. And therefore, I'm going to own it, and I'm going to be proud of it, or whatever it is, and remain confident about that. So people, I don't need it. I don't need to say that. I do. There are indignant moments. I have to be very honest when people say, because they're talking down, and I don't like that. Like they're not getting the level of respect. I will just come out and say, I'm sorry, it's Dr. Desmore. What can I do for you? And that steps them back and resets them. Not that I'm expecting it, but it's more of like, you're treating me like I'm nobody at this point. And not to say that nobody isn't a good thing. I don't care. It's more of, how do you break that train of thought of someone just, they could be having a bad day. I don't know. There's a whole lot of different ways to it, but that's my perspective on it.
Well, that's an interesting thing because, I did a keynote on just last weekend on command presence.
Mm-hmm.
And, with the military, you walk in and it's obvious who I am, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a reason for that on the battlefield and all these other things. You go back in history with flags and feathers and all that other crap. But outside the military, it's like, well, who the hell are you and who are you in that? So there is no credibility, instant credibility other than, truthfully, how you personally walk in the room. That's it. And for you, it's Robin, it is even more difficult in the world that you're operating in, the government contract, because it's majority men, majority veterans, and most of them are probably not quite as many as it used to be because, a lot of guys in my age category are retiring. So they're a little bit different Army, but, I didn't have any women in anything that I did I think we had a supply sergeant, that group. That was a woman, Melissa. Camden, you remember Melissa. That's it. That's it. She was like the only woman in the entire group. So
I know like 10 people from your Army days. Yeah, she's one.
Yeah, probably because she made you dance with her at something at one point. Knowing her.
Probably.
Yeah.
But why do you think that? But here's the thing: something the military teaches you, especially your background, Otis, it gave you a level of confidence that 100 people in the room don't have, right? In any particular way. So I'm going to take that in the sense that I can go toe to toe with anybody who's been in the military. I don't have a problem with it. It's because it was given to me, but now I have, which is one of the reasons I have my PhD, is because I credentialed myself in a much bigger way that gave me a seat at the table, gave me a much better, bigger, louder voice. More so, not that I wasn't always smart and I didn't do my job the best of my ability at any given point. It was more of that, not being seen, heard, or given the allowance of presence in a room. Now, anybody who knows me, they absolutely, she's going to own it. She's going to take it and she's going to run with it regardless, before I even have my PhD. Now my PhD is in IT management. So it's intimidating you walk into a room and they're like, oh, well, you're a doctor. I actually had somebody ask me this yesterday at a luncheon. And she's like, oh, you're a doctor? Doctor of what? IT. Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it was in medical or something. No, no, it's still a PhD in IT that's spent. And she's like, oh, okay, well, it's nice meeting you. And she literally immediately walked away. And I was just like, I totally intimidated her with just making that statement. But she asked it in a way that was, I don't know what's the word I want to use. Credibility. I guess the only way I want to look at it is like she was trying to establish my credibility in the room of other people. And that was kind of it. So I take that in a sense of I walk into every room, not necessarily wearing that particular aspect. And my name tag didn't say doctor anywhere on it. It just said just Robin. And so I was like, hey, I'm just Robin. But, it's military. I think I want to say military gives it to us. And you're never going to lose it. I mean, like every other person I've ever met, you can tell when they're in the military or were.
Well, let's go ahead, Kim.
There's another piece there that I think is interesting,
right,
which is, we talk about it in terms of degrees sometimes, Dad. We call it like the degree trap of it's like, if I just get this master, if I just go take one more class, if I just go get certified, and it's like, that's going to give me the extra letters to put on my LinkedIn, and that's going to get me the job, or like, whatever the example is there. Then I feel like there's like a title chasing thing that's almost in the same vein there. And I'm curious, Robin, what are your thoughts on the idea of like needing the title versus just like needing it for your own personal confidence? Because I think there is something really legitimate to that, because there are these things, it's not like you're buying a PhD. It's like you did legitimately do something. So drawing confidence from that is not some vain thing. It's like, no, you did something. That's amazing. Like same thing with like military titles. I think there's something to be said for that. But at the same time, it's like, if it's a confidence issue, then, why don't we just be more confident and not have to go chase degrees or, whatever it is there. What are your thoughts on that, Robin?
Oh, that's a can of worms. Seriously. Especially being a woman. And I'm not going to use the whole women card at any particular point in time, because I think we all make our own paths, right? And we all use our own crutches. I don't use the woman crutch. Not that it is a crutch, but that sometimes women come into a thing and say, I'm not being seen, or I'm not being heard. I was literally not being seen, not being heard. I was being passed over for things that I knew I added value to. And why did I know that? Is because people around me saw it and valued it and called me out for it. So I'm using that as an example of, like, I went to my PhD. Just one, I'm a life learner, and it made sense if I was going to learn something, just, apply it in the best, most capable way possible. But then there are people who think that the title is going to give them something more. Sometimes it's more money. Sometimes it's not. I did learn many years ago from actually a male counterpart of mine, and he was, a chief operating officer or something like that at that point in time. And I was just a lowly somewhere along the line. And he's like, you have to make a choice. Do you want the title or do you want the money? And then if whatever that particular gamble, and then you're like, you have to make a decision about why you want that title or why you want that money. Like, what is each or both giving to you that you need at any particular point in time? And I sat and thought, I'm like, I hadn't even thought about it like that, right? I hadn't thought about, like, am I still going to be doing the same job if I get a title and thing, or am I going to get more problems? And I have learned the more title, the more problems, the more things that you wind up having, and the money isn't always solving any problem that you have anywhere along the way as well, right? So new title and new money, woo, yay, that's great. It's gone in taxes half the time. So I look at it like anybody who wants a title, I like giving them when nobody asks for them. I have to be honest. In my company, the people who deserve it never ask for it, because they're coming in, they're doing the job, and they're kicking ass. It's the ones who are jealous about not being able to do something or get it, because they don't understand that process of doing, and you will be recognized. Do, serve, give, whatever it is that you got to do, and you will be eventually recognized. I totally believe that is an absolute concept. So I think it's keeping up with the Joneses, in the short phrase, just keeping up with the Joneses, not necessarily the credibility part about it.
Well, I'd like to shift gears, because I'd really love to learn what happened to go from academia, the professor, Dr. Robin, or Dr. Professor, Professor Doctor,
Professor,
Professor Doctor. If we were German, we would know how to say that, because you could be a Doctor Colonel or Colonel Doctor in German. I don't remember how to say that anymore either.
They just jam words together over there, though.
Oh yeah. But what drove you out of? Drove may be a strong word. You choose the word. But why did you leave academia? Because, I mean, truthfully, it's a very safe place once you are established, and it's not bad pay. So what made you say, well, you know what? Why don't I just screw all this easygoing stuff and start my own company and wear the burden of that for the rest of my career, life, whatever?
Oh, I'm going to give it. I've never just had one job in my entire life, Otis. So when I was a professor, I was working still full time as a, government contractor somewhere, shape or form. So, and I taught multiple places at same time. So it was more of, and I'm going to slightly shift this, because from my standpoint, it's about serving, right? I got my PhD, and I wanted to test what that looked like, right? I had people that I'd known in my career who were doing it for years and years and years and loved it. And it's for some people, and for some people it's just not. And I did it for about 9 years, and loved aspects of it, but it wasn't what drove me. While the being of service and helping, grow minds and stuff like that is absolutely fantastic. I'm more of a hands-on person. I want to take somebody and maybe shake them a little bit sometimes, but take that and just serve in some other way. So now, as a CEO of a company, I'm still serving. I'm still trying to serve. I still am a huge advocate for all of the veteran, community in any way, shape, or form. Huge on the suicide prevention and awareness piece of it. But I'm on a board now, so I'm on the National, Veteran Small Business Coalition board, trying to find better ways and more mechanisms to give back, right? To what's needed out there. How is it needed? So it's not that I chose not to stay in academia. I still am, because I'm a lifelong learner. I'm still learning. I'm still learning how they're doing it, what they're doing it. I'm actually applying certain pieces of that to even in my current company. Like I'm looking at how I can help the Army, the Navy, whomever it is, teach. I mean, it's part of what we do as a whole anyways, is teach them how to do something better, or teach them how to give them the right tools or build the right tools to help them make a difference, make it better somewhere along the way. So from my standpoint, it's not I didn't leave it. It's always going to be there and be a part of me, and I'm using it in different ways at that point.
I'd be really interested to hear your kind of approach to finding that balance between, like you said, not leaving these areas, but maybe, shrinking them, focusing, people say like the seasons of life, like focusing in another area for now, that kind of approach. Cause I think, that's so key to what we talk about in our coaching dad with Tribe and Purpose of, it's like understanding your purpose and understanding how that connects in all these different life categories. And it can be really freaking hard to excel in different life categories. It's really easy to build up that business one and have everything else be really small. But go volunteer on the weekends and do your little things there and there. But it's like you're like, I want to help. I want to be on the board of the foundation. I want to go coach rugby. I want to do this. You start listing all those things out to affect change in all those different areas, serve all those other people. That can be a really hard, push and pull there. What are your thoughts on how you've been able to kind of find your sweet spot without cutting things out? Or cutting things out might not be the right way to put it, because you do got to cut things sometimes, but without completely ignoring those aspects of your life.
Before we got on this call today, this morning, I actually woke up at 4:30 this morning thinking about what drives me. So I'm a very driven person. So I'm gonna say it like that. But for me, I found purpose when I was in the Army, 30 some odd years ago, or 30 years ago. So I'll just say 30 some odd years ago. I found my purpose, and it was weird when I got out that I didn't know how to apply that purpose, and I didn't actually understand it in the levels that I understand it now. But it was more of like, how do you find how to help people? And that part never left me. Always helping, always trying to help people, which we do gravitate towards too as well. We find people who are always trying to help, and you want to help them help, and you want to help them because nobody's helping them. Like it's this never ending piece of it. But what I did find, in one of the sole purposes of my creating my business, was to provide support and help in other ways. So, I love every single one of my clients. I have to be very honest. I'm helping them, and I see myself helping them, and they acknowledge that I'm helping them in whatever way it is. And I think that's a huge piece of it. And I'm trying to, obviously, when I'm looking at what I'm working with in the military as well, on the GovCon side of the government contracting side, but I have both sides, so our consulting side and the GovCon side. And I love that I'm finding my purpose in a different way, and the mechanism of helping does cover a lot of different things. And if you take your job, and I think this is where some people think, I was there when I worked for some of the bigger companies. I don't have a purpose because I feel like I'm just a rat in the race, right? The building your own company and finding your own purpose of what that looks like and how you can solve things. I'm driven to solve and serve. That's pretty much my sole purpose in life. I'm going to solve problems, and I'm going to serve. Even if that serving means solving other problems and other ways of giving as much as possible. So I don't know if that completely answers it, but I think that the way that you asked it, for me, that's it. My purpose, I found it, and I just cultivated it every day since then.
So what is your purpose? You kind of danced around it. You said solve and serve. What is your purpose?
My purpose besides solving and serving?
Well, is that it? I mean, is that it? Did I understand you right?
I can define it other than the fact that if my purpose is, and I'm going to be very honest, I'm having an emotional moment just because the whole veteran thing is very, very close. And that's all I want to do. I want to really just help that everybody who comes out, and the community is small, the camaraderie is big, and then so you go, how do I keep that momentum of pulling back and pushing, and to me it's a purpose. How do you teach other people to do that? So I don't look at it like, oh, what is your purpose in life? It's to serve in whatever capacity that looks like. And it's not not a servitude. It's more of, how can I help? My purpose is, I want to help. It doesn't even matter which way it helps. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. I have to be very honest. Helping sometimes gets you in trouble for a lot of different reasons in whatever way. But for me, it's just, how can I help? And Otis, we've had many conversations about that. And in part of our community can have that. We can have a bigger conversation with that, because I think it's something people miss. People want so much. I'm a giver, not a getter. I love getting, but even then it makes me uncomfortable. I'd rather give. I think it's better. Purpose.
Yeah, well, and it reminds me, and a shout out to our buddy Scotty Mann, his book coming out. I should know the title, and crap, I can't remember it, but it's something along the lines of nobody's coming to help, and there's so much truth to that, and I think that's and Camden and I've had that conversation on the show.
Nobody is coming to save you. Got you on a quick Google there, Dad. Perks of having two hosts.
Yep. There we go. But now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
It's what do you do with the compliment, right? And learning to do that. We had that conversation years ago on the show, and how do you handle that? And because it's the same, it's in that same brainwave path, right? If you're not asking for help or not willing to receive help, you're probably uncomfortable getting a compliment like, nice shirt. Wow, I really like the way you've decorated the new office or whatever. And you're like, yeah, well,
just me.
Whatever. Yeah.
But the important piece of nobody's coming to save you is different than the serving piece, right? For me. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at it. No, nobody's ever saved me. I don't need that. And I'm going to be, that's a little on my side of the part of being driven. Part of the conversation I was having with myself at 4:30 this morning about, I learned nobody was ever going to save me. Nobody was ever going to, and I want to say help, because I've had many, many people help me over the years, but I never had anybody try to save me, like, oh, don't do this or don't do that. It was never like, I'm Generation X. I'm going to be very honest. We have a big conversation about that. We all survived with bad parenting and, water hose, drinking out of the water hose, all summer long. So from my standpoint, I'm just like, that was what has been my driving, like I'm in control. Nobody can tell me, nobody can save me. If I make my own decisions and this is my path, there's not going to be anybody to save me. I have to save myself and have to figure out what that looks like. But the serving piece that I'm heavily bent on and understanding is helping them people see that, a lot of very small circle that I have very close to me. That is actually one of our biggest connections, is how we all help each other, but know that the help is, hey, you got to figure this shit out yourself. Be very honest. You have to figure it out yourself. I can help tell you what that looks like from my standpoint, but in the end, it's you. How can I help you? Can I make you dinner this week, and maybe that helps take something off of you? Does that help you? Get to whatever particular piece of it, or can I just tell you a funny story and maybe give you a little bit of a lightness that helps you get to a better place?
It reminds me, Dad, actually, speaking of, Scotty, I think we talked about this with him. It's the Green Beret approach to things of like working yourself out of the job. It's like, if I need to talk to you every Tuesday night, every week for an hour and a half, it's like, we gotta start shrinking that time down, Robin. It's like, I love you, we can talk, and I'm here to help you, but it's like hour and a half every Tuesday. Gosh, you gotta do some work if we're at that level for months, right? It's like, hey, every other week we could talk. Hey, 45 minutes. You start thinking like, because you shouldn't need that crutch the entire time. I think there's something to be said. We talk about things as a crutch. And I think that's the interesting thing. I've always thought this because, I've had enough injuries with rugby that I was on crutches for an extended period of time that it's like, not that bad for how as far as injuries goes, to be fair. But it's an interesting thing because the crutches, we use that as kind of a bad word, but it's like, no, sometimes you need the crutch. But the problem then is when you don't take it off ever. You don't try to walk without it. You become overly reliant on it. And I think there's such a big piece of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of self-serving too that goes to crutches, that people don't necessarily want to do the work or don't want to necessarily get to a better place. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know. I see it. I just don't know how people get to that stage. And I'm sure there's many life choices that have happened along the way. Here's where I'll share this really important piece, because I had breast cancer last year. It didn't stop me. And if anything, it made me a little bit more indignant about the choices I made and the way that I felt about the choices that I made. It not only solidified me in a whole different way, in a sense that I'm like, I already didn't worry about what everybody else said, but I really didn't matter anymore. And then it made the people who were close to me a lot closer, because I was like, I made the choice somewhere along the way to cultivate this and have them that close. And now I feel like they were absolutely holding me up in whatever way it looked like and helping me. But at the same time, the day I found out I had cancer, my entire family was there. They all came. There was 9 people in this doctor's office. And I thought the doctor was going to lose his brain. It's at the VA on top of everything else. And he's just like looking at all this. And I said, everybody's here to hear the same thing I'm hearing, so that they have it in their own way and can help in their how they're listening and what it looks like in the end. And to me, that was a big life lesson that people don't ever necessarily use. Like, I never thought I would ever get breast cancer. I never thought I'd get any kind of cancer, much less anything else. So I took it as an advantage of saying, it is something, it happens. Never used it as a crutch. Never say, I know people who have done it. It pisses me off because it just shows weakness, and it doesn't show vitality and authenticness of, what it is. Yeah, I had bad days. But you know what? I made every day better because I was looking at it from a different set of eyes, like, what if this got really worse? Or what if this happened? It said, okay, no, I'm good. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to serve in any way I can, and happy to do everything I can, because there's people who don't get a chance to. So,
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a shift in perspective, and that's the, a baseball bat upside the head, a car accident, a diagnosis, losing a loved one, you name it. They're all reminders of living for the moment, making choices that are important to you, and being who you are. Because I think back to the nobody's coming to save you thing. The whole gist of that really boils down to being willing to be saved. I think of you throw a life raft out to somebody who's overboard. Well, they still got to grab the damn life raft, or the ring. They still got to grab it. So there's that whole aspect of it. And I think when you have that shift and understanding that, one, it's okay to get help.
Yep.
And 2, it's okay to ask for help.
Yep.
But what you were saying, you and Cam were talking about it, is, it's the antithesis of that. I think is the right way of putting it. Is it becomes something you depend on.
Yep.
And you're no longer, it's that movie Failure to Launch sort of thing, and that's what it is. It's like, dude, get the frick out here and start doing something. Just do something. Don't just sit. And it's just so. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know. I don't understand the shrinkness of that.
I think I mean, to throw your own words back at you, Dad. It's the boiling a frog. I think it's
Yeah.
you think slowly go that direction and you wind up in an environment that's not good for you, but you don't notice how bad it is because you went that way so slowly that it's not a dramatic change. Like, and even, and very, very different experiences, of course, but like even with what we were talking about, Robin, I thought of my own like back injury. And I think one of the ways that and maybe it's a personality thing also that I'm that type a little bit, but I know I have used it as a crutch, and it's something I've been trying to be better and better at. Of just like, no, like, yeah, my back's bad, but it's like I've got freaking hopefully 50 plus years with this bad back. I'm going to do some stuff with it. Like have it come into that realization. But I think part of it was because it was something that like wasn't that bad that it almost like you feel okay with it. And I think that's that boiling water thing that you talked about before, Dad. It's like, well, yeah, I just won't lift things sometimes. And it's like, well, that's a very small choice, but then what that means in the big picture is very different. And I think that's a little bit of how people fall into those traps. Because yeah, I could definitely look back on my years since I've hurt my back, and there were definitely plenty of times where I was using that crutch way too heavy. I was not choosing not to do things, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's easy to make the small choices, and then those small choices add up, and then all of a sudden you're the frog in the boiling pot of water.
Yeah. Listen, I've had plenty of times when there was crutches of things that I probably did to myself, whether it's bad relationships or bad choices, whatever it may have been. You're going to have them. It's okay to have a crutch that you probably lean on because you need to, because sometimes life is hard and you need to lean some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's on people, sometimes it's on your own self. Sometimes, there's other things. That's how substance abuse is a problem. But, I think it's understanding and recognizing the crutch or the need for a crutch. And, I had a good friend of mine who was a, what is he called? It was codependent, right? Not on drugs, not on alcohol, liquor. It was on people, right? Always had to have that one person there, to help keep them lifted up. And I was just like,
Yep.
that's a lot, and I get, that's the save me piece that I was thinking of more importantly, because I've never been that person. I love leaning on people sometimes. But at the same time, I've never been codependent on anybody. So I'm like going, I don't understand that. How did you get to that role? And funny, former military, like 30 years. And I go, how did you get that way? Is it because the teams taught you that? I didn't understand that, but I think I'm not trying to obviously minimize anybody who does it. It's just, the crutch, they exist. People use them periodically. I know I have my family is probably my biggest crutch. If I have to be very honest, if I had a need or want anything, my family is it. My brother, my older brother is it. I have to be very honest. If I rely on anybody, he is it because he's been there for my entire life. So it's a weird brother thing where I don't hate him. I love him and I need him as a part of my life. So
I think there's an interesting piece, and maybe we need a different kind of doctor to talk about that. But the idea of the dependency is like, again, it kind of goes back to it's that smaller thing. It's easier to wrap your head around, but it's the thing that I think it's like we might need a different kind of doctor is I wonder how much of that is just addictive personality, just manifesting in different ways. Because to me, if you're somebody who is just like the social butterfly, well, then it's very easy to fall into that trap. I guess social butterflies probably fall into other substance abuse traps and those kind of things. So maybe that is just the addiction piece there. But I think that's an interesting aspect of it. It's like, yeah, if you are the type that likes that thing, you almost have to build in the opposite for you. One of the Daily Stoic passages I read earlier this week was something in that same vein of it's like you have to, train for the winter during the summer. You have to train for the fight before the fight starts, like all those kind of things. Like if you are the type of person to lean that kind of way, you got to build some stuff into your schedule to not be around people. Go build a shed by yourself. A very personal example.
Awesome. No, it's a great conversation. I mean, obviously they've taken a lot of different turns and stuff because there's so many complexities. I don't think that anything that we're talking about, and I hope that anybody who's listening, obviously, thinks that, it's not, none of it's a funnel. It's more of like, oh, well, my personal experience is I completely see the whole holistic piece of it. I'm just looking at it from like, I don't understand it because I don't. it's just because it's not my personality, and it's not even necessarily people I gravitate towards. There are people in my life that might be like that, but I'm also a very arm's length kind of person when when you can't help them because they want that, right? They want that crush. They want that, I want that hour and a half every single week just to, no, I don't, I don't have enough mental capacity for that.
Yeah. And that's the fun thing about a podcast format is we get to explore all those different perspectives on stuff. And Dr. Robin, because I got to call you doctor for this question. I had one I wanted to make sure I asked you because I think it's interesting. We have this phrase that we're throwing on the show talking about us as coaches. This, the doctor heal thyself type moments where it's like the people who, in my opinion, there's this funny phenomenon where people who get really dedicated to something, there's almost like a blind spot for them where it's like, hey, I have to learn everything about psychology because I can't handle what happened to me. Or, there's always some layer to that. What is it about IT management for you? Is there just something that is like if we talk to, we know Zane and, we call Zane up and we start talking IT stuff. Do you have like the worst IT? What's your doctor heal thyself moment with that?
Oh, that's a great question. No, the best part about my degree and the years of experience that I have in it is I'm an expert at nothing specific, but everything generically, right?
Uh-huh.
I love the idea that I know enough to put something together because that's actually what my degree is, right? It's IT management, meaning how do you put together something to make it work? And it sounds a lot like life, right? But if you can apply it to anything, if you think about it, and you're like, oh, what is it going to take to put this? I'm like, I don't know, this, and you kind of put it together. So from my aspect, I'm looking at it going, did I need to learn a lot about one specific thing? No. I needed to know a lot about different things, but that was the best part. I didn't want to have to know everything about this and then this. I had to know enough to go, I can have this conversation with anybody about what IT is and what it looks like and how it needs to be worked and whatever else, and enough to be dangerous with where it goes, but it's creative. I love that idea too. Did that answer it?
I don't know what I was looking for with that, but I wanted to ask it, so I'll just say yes.
If you need to, you ask me more later. Okay.
Okay.
I'd love to, we've said it several times, lifelong learner. What are you learning now?
I think I'm learning more about right now about business and about how the systems work for and against you. It is not that I don't know, and especially in the GovCon area, I do, but everything is moving so fast right now. The AI is changing everything. So if I'm learning anything right now, it's about the AI, more so about how it's being applied and where it's being applied and why it's being applied. I think it's a great tool if you know how to use it the right way without being malicious with it, because I'm all about the honesty and the integrity of everything I do. So looking at it going, hey, how can this help me write something? Now, I like to write. The problem is I can write for days. It's going back and fixing what I just wrote, right, to make it more coherent to somebody else to read it, or in more layman's term, or whatever it may be. Because so I look at it and like, how can I use it and play with it? And so for me, I'm looking at like, that's what I'm learning. I'm learning how to make business better, more efficient, and easier, because that really truly is part of what my PhD is in. But also, how do I take what's coming up and staying with the technology that's pulling up and how it's changing everything, but also recognizing that. I'm all about, staying very thoughtful and mindful of today and next week and next year and next month. So, yeah. Did that help? I mean, yeah. I could go on a whole lot. You have guys that are asking me great questions because I'm like, oh, I could talk about this for a long time. This particular piece now.
No, it was really out of curiosity, and I think it's an important curiosity for others to know. Okay, well, here you are, CEO of this GovCon supporting business, GovCon business, doing contracts for yourself, supporting others that are doing contracts and all this sort of stuff. So, what is it what's important? And that when we understand what's important, that's what we're going to learn more about, right?
Yeah.
The tagline for my company is unique solutions for unique situations, right? So it's because of that. So if I stop learning, I can't come up with really unique solutions to anything because I'm not learning how to do that now. It's changing. It's very much changing. What I did, 10 years ago is not applicable right now. What is coming down the pipeline and staying with that is and I don't want to say it's the trends or the buzzwords, but it is how we want to do business next, but staying ahead of that and knowing how to stay ahead of that is what I think is important.
Yeah.
To learn.
And in that line of lifelong learners and what I learned, I'd never heard the veteran tribe described like you did. And I love that because I just never heard that. It's the community is small, but the camaraderie is big. And that's really an interesting dichotomy in it. And it's so true because, we've found in, some of our marketing that our marketing is much more easily accepted in the veteran community because we have the bona fides, veteran to veteran. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. I'd like to learn more, Otis, because you're a vet and I'm a vet and I like helping each other out sort of thing. Yep. So that's very much that camaraderie piece. So, Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I had two kind of quick ones, but the first is, Robin, whenever I'm asked what my purpose is, I usually say problem solving, and I like solve and serve a lot more. So if it's okay with you, I would like to co-sign on solve and serve because I think that hits it much better. I hadn't heard it put that way. So if it's all right with you, Robin, can I have that as well?
Yeah, you can have it.
Perfect. Okay. And then the other piece is kind of looking back at the conversation. I think this is one of those great ones where it does feel like we meandered around in a lot of different areas, but I was like, it all goes back to the self-confidence of, do you want the title? Why do you want the title? Do you need the title? And like all of those different questions boil down into, do you need somebody else to be around you all the time? Are you comfortable being by yourself? I think they're all kind of play into each other. So I just love that. I think that's what I learned.
Robin, how about you? What'd you learn?
I learned that I learned a lot. I'm going to say it like this. I learned a little bit more about when talking this conversation are the kind of conversations I wish I was having every day. I learned that I miss this. I miss these just big conversations that really mean a lot because it makes you think a lot and it inspires you in a lot of different ways. And I'm not having them. I learned that I'm not having enough of these. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Robin, how do folks find you, learn what you've got going on with Avant-Garde and,
solve their unique situations?
Yeah. No, actually, we have a website, Avant-Garde Concepts LLC.com. We're on LinkedIn, all over the place on LinkedIn right now. We got lots of going on, but I'm here in the beautiful state of Florida, in Tampa area and stuff like that. So absolutely, you'll find me, Dr. Robin Desmore. There's only one of us running around. So feel free to reach out, and I would love it. I would love just to have a bigger conversation.
Awesome. Robin, it's been a pleasure having you here, and thank you for your time today.
Oh, I loved it. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to talk to you guys some more soon.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Camden and Otis, and a special thanks to our guest, Dr. Robin Desmore, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so that they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes is available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.